Welcome to Blue Monday with me, Les, Dave, and Rodger. We're back on a Monday this week again, just to keep you on your toes. Matt and Paddy will be with you tomorrow, Tuesday, but it's been an Everton free weekend, which I'm sure, Everton men free weekend, which I'm sure everyone's enjoyed. And for the women, they beat the Reds, which I'm sure everyone else enjoyed as well. But we're going to pick up today. We're going to second part of the show. We're going to look at the upcoming fixtures. Because I don't know about you boys, but I am terrified every time I look at them. I know it's a cliche that there's no easy games, but even looking at Brentford and Wolves now, which I thought they're the ones we should be looking at winning, they're not going to be easy. But before we get into that, Jordan Pickford got a 73rd England cap over the weekend. I think that equals Gordon Banks, and it's the most of any playing Everton player. The most England caps for any player playing for Everton has ever picked up. So, Dave, I think you just want to pick up on some stats about Pickford and just generally, I'm hoping you're going to say just generally how great he is.
Yeah, that's right. It's something that sticks in my mind every season. Obviously, he's crucial to how we've stayed in the Premier League for the past 3 years, but also, he's a guy that gets a lot of criticism, like most goalkeepers do. To be fair, when there's an instant error, that sort of indication will go about him, and the blame will go about goalkeepers when they're the ones that do the howler, and you've lost the game or anything like that. And that's only natural for the goalkeeper to do. Pickford's at the sad end of the stick with that. I think he has been throughout his career since the England stuff. Anytime he makes an error, and I think a lot of it's to do with him, the way in which he sort of portrays himself. We've spoke about it ourselves, the infamous situations he's had when we've played away at Newcastle, and various times where he just looks like he's lost his head and things, and we've ended up cocking up. But I just want the more positive side of it. I do think he's still underrated, certainly by many Blues as well as everybody else in the country. When you look at the stats that he's got, and obviously we signed him for 30 million quid, which was a massive eye opener when you think we got him from Sunderland. He was still a kid. He was basically just a raw, talented goalkeeper. And you think about the money we spent around then, it was quite ridiculous. And I remember when we got him at the time, I thought we've got a talented goalkeeper here, but why are we paying 30 million quid for him? But he's 30 years old now. He turned 30 this year. And his totals are quite astonishing, really. He's played 291 games for Everton, which I think that goes by as well because he looks like he's about 12 years old still. But I think when you look at him, it's like that. But then you look at Everton player of the season. He's done it on 4 occasions, including the last 3 seasons, which obviously indicates how important he was to keep us up. 73 England caps, like you mentioned there. And this is his 8th season for us. And I just think, obviously, the obvious question to ask is where he ranks amongst the greats at Everton goalkeepers. Which obviously I think we'd all agree that Nev's nobody's going to get anywhere near him, certainly in our lifetimes. But just what is your feelings towards him as an Everton goalkeeper, but also how crucial he's been to us? Because I think generally he's been very, very underrated throughout most of his career, and certainly in his time with us.
I agree with you, Dave. I think it's a very different Everton team that he's playing in than Neville played in, because that team was winning trophies. Yeah. And Neville, was outstanding, and everyone knew the back door was safe when he was in goal. But he had less to do than Pickford. I would argue that Pickford's been under more pressure than anybody in the last throughout his career. Any player on the pitch for Everton, he's been under the most pressure, and he has saved us. With that last minute save against Bournemouth, penalty save against Leicester. In absolutely vital games. Forget games that might have happened in October, November, or January of a season. And I think he's hugely underrated. And there's so much pressure when you're playing in goal in a team at the bottom of the league, just like there is if you're playing centre back. Or if you're in the defensive unit. I think he's outstanding. I think his record is identical to Banks, actually. 73 games, 35 clean sheets for England. 35 clean sheets for England. He's played in major tournaments, major finals, of those tournaments. He's never let his country down. Every manager has gone with him. Every Everton manager has gone with him. Nobody's ever questioned him. I thought he was superb in the Greece game. Made a couple of outstanding saves there. And yeah, I can't praise him enough. I think it's. I don't know if England have had him. I don't know if England provides him with a sort of release, playing with better players, playing in a team more likely to win games than Everton, or whether Everton has benefited from his England experience. Has England benefited from his Everton experience, or the other way around? Probably a mixture of both.
That's a good point.
I think he's wonderful. I think he's wonderful, and I hope he stays. And I hope he breaks every record he possibly can. And it's very rare for a keeper to be captain, and I know he's a little bit all over the place, screaming and shouting and what have you. But he's a leader, and I think every other player on the pitch looks up to him.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, Neville Southall's the outlier, and he always will be, like you said.
Yeah.
But for me, he's next after Southall. He's not had the glory that Southall's had. Southall did play in some bad teams as well, didn't he? He sort of straddled
towards the end, yeah, of course.
Yeah, he straddled the whole spectrum of Everton. But I think Pickford, I think it's amazing that he's still with us, because I think he could and probably should have gone on to bigger and better things away from Everton, the state this club's been in. But it just feels like it's a good fit for him. I think the club's done well by him when he's had struggles in the past. Notably after the Van Dijk thing, when all that nonsense was flying around. I think the club did really well by him. Ancelotti took him out the team, which at the time was a little bit, could have gone either way, but I think it was the right thing to do. And, as we say all the time, he's not looked back since then, has he? He could be quite erratic at times. His mistakes, he hasn't had a great start to this season, but it looks like he's getting back into his form. If you look at the West Ham game, he saved us again there. As you said, Dave, the last 3 seasons, we'd have been down, literally would have been down without the saves that he's made. And I don't think it's not that often you can put that on a keeper, is it? You usually think like your strikers and the goals keep you up. But he certainly has kept us up. And I'm looking at his stats, considering the teams he's played in. He's played in a couple of half-decent Everton teams, but by and large, it's been pretty bad. The Sunderland team, that was a pretty bad team he played in as well. And he's kept like 78 clean sheets, which is pretty good. When he's played 297 games and 78 clean sheets, which is pretty good. And he's saved 6 penalties in that time, crucial ones for Everton. But like you say, Rodger, the England thing as well, that does feel like it could be a release for him, where he's playing with better players, he's playing on that bigger stage. And let's face it, he done enough in the Euros to win that game in the final.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Southgate tried to get too clever with the penalty takers, and the penalty takers weren't good enough. So obviously England didn't win that. But I just think he's been everything. He's been everything you like about Everton for me for the past few seasons. He's been like one of an old new borrowed blue. It's been very rare that people haven't mentioned him at least in their favourite current player, if they don't say he is. So I agree with what you've both said there. He's just been a fantastic keeper.
Just on the point you made there about...
sorry, Dave.
Sorry, Rod. I was just going to say the point you made there about the amount of clean sheets, that's pretty much 1 in 4 clean sheets. I mean, you think of how much Everton have struggled. 1 in 4 clean sheets is quite remarkable. I mean, it shows you how much we've been battered in the other 3 games from every 1 in 4, really, doesn't it? Which obviously does no one else in the team, rightly so, any favours. But one of the points you made there, and I do find myself feeling like I'm asking this question a lot, the way in which players go about these days and, sign for clubs, in inverted commas, bigger clubs. We could debate that all afternoon long, how big Everton are as a football club these days compared to how crap we are. How hasn't he gone? How has he not left Everton? Because like we've said, since 2017, I think he made his first England cap. Since then, he's been England's regular goalkeeper. There was the stupid arguments with him and Ramsdale for the last couple of years. But obviously that's not deterred the fact that he's England's number 1. He's Everton's number 1. We bought him for 30 million quid. He's quite obviously valued at a hell of a lot more than that. You look at the goalkeepers or the clubs have gone for. You look, for instance, at Arsenal when they've got with David Raya. They got rid of Ramsdale. You look at Chelsea have been through a few goalkeepers. Man United as well Onana, who they got now, looks half decent, but since they lost to Gea, they've not really had anybody proper. I'm quite staggered. I mean, they might well have come in for him there, behind closed doors. But firstly, if they had, why has he stayed? And if they haven't, then why?
I think there's been a trend towards overseas goalkeepers in the last 5 to 10 years. There aren't very many English keepers in the Premier League. Him, Ramsdale, maybe Pope. Trafford was the next great hope, wasn't he? And I don't think he's turned out to be much. And I think, all of a sudden, teams or countries that weren't renowned for goalkeepers, like Brazil, have got, you've got Edison and Alisson, for God's sake, who are probably up there in the top 2 or 3 keepers in the world. And I think that's been a trend. I'm not sure there have been inquiries for him because certainly in the last few years we'd have taken the money because we needed the money. He's probably the one Steve Walsh success. I suppose you could say Idrissa Gana Gueye as well, couldn't you? Would have been a good signing by Steve Walsh, Moneybag Steve Walsh. I was just going to say before, I sort of indirectly know a few people who come across Jordan because he's a keen golfer and he plays golf down in a course in Staffordshire quite near where the JCB place is. And what they say is that apparently he's not very keen on football, doesn't really like it much. and that's quite similar to Neville, because if you talk to Neville, he really can't be asked. I'm quite good at goalkeeping, but I want to get on with other stuff. He famously drives home to Llandudno after we win the FA Cup. Doesn't go out with the boys. And he just happens to
like
have
most of us
gift.
with jobs, Rodger, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think it is. I think he takes it as a job and he takes it very seriously. He's very intense, but I don't think he's I don't think we'll see him as a goalkeeping pundit or a coach in later life. I just think he's doing it because he's good at it, and he doesn't necessarily. I mean, I wouldn't enjoy playing in golf for Everton, would you? But yeah, he's certainly a character, and we're lucky, very very lucky to have him.
Yeah, that is one of those things, isn't it? Where if you've got a player who just happens to be good at football and they treat it as a job, it can go one of 2 ways. They can sort of be a bit detached and dispassionate, but he's like very much the other way. You can see he wants to be an elite player. He wants to be the best he possibly can. You can see he's constantly trying to improve his game. If he does something wrong, if he misplaces a kick, you can see it annoys him, and he'll apologise and hold his hand up, and he never sort of shies away from anything like that, does he? He will take responsibility. It's easy for a keeper to just shout at his defence and like my young lad Joe, he's a goalkeeper. And if ever he makes a mistake, I say to him, just blame your defence. Just say it was their fault. The shot shouldn't have gone in the first place. But Pickford does although he does shout and scream at his defence, which unbelievably he got stick for a while ago. I think when Tarkowski came out, didn't he? I said he's constantly in the air. And people were like, oh, that's got to be putting the defence off. It's like, no, that's what your goalkeeper does. They see the game from a different angle to anyone else.
Yeah.
So they're constantly shouting at the defence. They can see where the play's going. It's their job. If you've got a keeper who's really quiet and doesn't do that, then I think that does cause problems because they need to make it known that they're there. So I love that part of his game. Obviously you've had the situation where he's famously with Newcastle fans, he winds them up as well. He doesn't shirk from that either. He gets a lot of stick from a lot of fans all around the country, and he will give it back, as and when he can, which isn't that often, to be honest, but we've done all right against Newcastle recently. I just think he's a very, although he just seems like a normal fella, he's probably a very complex character when it comes to being a footballer, isn't he? Like you say, Rodger, if it's not the be all and end all for him, it is a job, but he wants to be the best at that job. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot of moving parts with him. And that's what's made him such a good goalie. And as you say, I think we're lucky to have him. The one thing that really stands out for me is I do not know why Man United never bought him when they bought Onana. That was a perfect chance. And I think, to be fair to him, I think he would have been mad not to jump for that chance at the time if it had come up. And it just staggers me that because the difference he could have made to that team. I know they've not been great, but I think if you install a really, really good keeper, it can make such a difference to a team that's sort of teetering on the edge of being all right and quite good. He could have made a huge difference there. So as you say, I do think we are lucky to have him, and I never want him to leave.
Do you know, it's interesting that other side of criticism he gets is, why is he still bothering with a club like Everton? I don't think it's as simple as for us to say, well, nobody's came in for him. I'd be staggered if they haven't. Even just an inquiry as to could we go and get Jordan Pickford? He's sitting there, isn't he? When Everton are in severe financial issues, you could probably go and pluck him there for a lot cheaper than essentially, like we were talking about Branthwaite. Excuse me. You think when we've spoken about Branthwaite over the summer, obviously United have come in and tried to get him on the cheap, given the situation we're in. And I was quite surprised in the end that we didn't end up selling Branthwaite for a lot less than what he's actually worth with us. The club actually, astonishingly for me, kept him, in closed doors as much as they possibly could, and he didn't end up leaving in the end. That remains to be seen in this summer. But with Pickford, the other side I wanted to ask you guys about, do you think he's content with being here? He's obviously not going to come out in public and say, I want to leave. But you never see him sort of like ruffle any feathers or anything like that. And I just think, you mentioned that Man United thing there, Les. Do you look at him and think, well, do you know what? He's just content with it? Because obviously it's very much the opposite of footballers these days. You want to go to these bigger clubs who are winning trophies and whatnot. Rodger, we're in this sort of era where that's straightforward. Do you think, even Branthwaite himself probably wants off from Everton? If you were to speak to him internally, and his friends and family are probably talking to him about it, would be no surprise at all. With him, no, I don't get that impression that he'd want to leave anyway, and I find that quite strange. Taking the blue cap off, that he just seems to be settled. Many people said that to me. He just seems to be settled, his family and whatnot. He's just content where he is. You mentioned that factor there, which I think is an important one, really, that's gone under the radar with him not particularly he doesn't look like the type who go home on a Sunday and watch all the games on the telly. He's not the type who'd be watching all the Champions League action. He wants to get out of football as well, but maybe that's a big sort of aspect of his personal life away from the game. But like I said initially, it's astonishing that we've still got him for 1, 7 years on from when we got him, and 2, he just seems like he's fine to be at Everton now. A lot of fans of other clubs would see that as a negative in terms of like, well, what's his aspirations in the game if he's not to try and get to the highest level he can and win trophies? And just curious of your take on that, to be honest.
I think England plays a part in that, because England have been very close to winning tournaments, haven't they, with him in goal? And I think that's perhaps where he's got that, I don't know, hunger from, the opportunity to win a World Cup, win a Euros, whatever, play in big games, play in big stadiums, go away an international week and not sit on the bench and challenge himself. You'd say, I think, is it a lack of ambition, or is it just a professional commitment to his craft? I don't know. I mean, Man United's very interesting, isn't it? Because clearly he should have gone there, but he wasn't. He hadn't played for Ajax, and therefore Ten Hag wasn't going to sign him. Simple as that.
Lucky for us.
Very lucky for us. I think it's professionalism at the club level and wanting. Maybe like all of us, he thinks, a bit like Only Fools and Horses. This time next season we'll be in the Champions League, which is kind of what we've thought throughout the Mashiri years. not quite in the last 3 or 4, but maybe he's only 30, as you say. It's good age. He's got a good 6, 7 seasons ahead of him, and Bramley Moore and the Friedkins and the brave new dawn that was due 8 years ago might finally come over the horizon. And I think maybe he's holding out for that. Good on him.
Yeah, I think it could be a case of as well as it seems very rare in football. You find a club that you're suited to, and it works both ways. He's very suited to Everton, and Everton's very suited to him. Now, normally, if that club's an unsuccessful club, as we've seen, even if it's a boyhood Evertonian, and the club's been good to them and they've been good to the club, you want to get off at the first opportunity to go and win stuff. But I think that could be a thing, that it just feels like a good fit. We always say there are sort of similarities between Everton and Sunderland, sort of city-wise, club-wise. They're not entirely dissimilar. So it could just be that the club's a good fit and he's happy with that. And as you say, Rodger, I think the England thing does play a massive part because that is the chance where you can go and you can play in those big games. Even if you're playing in a bit of a dead rubber in a group game in a World Cup, it's still a massive game, isn't it? Because that stadium's full. It's still a big occasion. And I think the other thing Everton gives him as well is it does, and I think this is probably. It kind of fits into the perception of his character. He can be the main character in games a lot of the time.
Yeah.
He's never going to be short of things to do. He's always going to be occupied. Now, as a goalkeeper, if you're in a really good team, the times that you're called upon are quite few and far between, and it can get quite boring for a keeper. If they're just stood there watching their team do the thing, and then they need to make a save on like 60 minutes, maybe another one on 80, and that's been the game for them. That's quite hard, and that's a completely different mindset you need to have to sort of play in a good team, which I know sounds a bit weird, saying I'd sooner play in a crap team because I'm doing more. But I think there is something in that he's constantly getting tested every game, isn't he? Now, it'll do his head in to a degree because, as a goalkeeper as well, you don't want to be facing shots all game because it's just a bit too much. You do want your team doing stuff to keep the shots out. But I think that could play into it as well. He's happy because he's constantly being worked. But that's just my thought on it. But there could be something in that.
I think you're right about the England situation. I would never, gun to my head, I never would give any praise to Gareth Southgate. I think it was remarkable. He was the England manager for so long. But the one thing I do give him credit for was sticking with Jordan Pickford when they got to particular stages of semi-finals and finals. I think the immediate criticism from many fans would go towards Pickford because he's just an easy target. I think certainly because he plays for Everton, who not going to have as many England fans, shall we say, as other clubs in and across the country. It's easy to turn around and say, "Oh, that's Jordan Pickford's fault. That he should have saved this, he should have saved that. How haven't we got through a penalty shootout when we're meant to have the best goalkeeper for England?" The attention immediately turns to him. And I think you're right. I think we've all touched upon it there. I know the sort of the tradition is that this goalkeepers are a bit wild and a little bit crazy. I think he's perfectly in that bracket, isn't he? He just seems to love. You mentioned it, Les. He just seems to love sort of getting into people's minds. He seems to love sort of screaming and shouting. Now, I think there's another side to that as well in terms of that'll go down for him as a criticism if we are to concede goals. People are like, what's he doing? Pissing around, shouting when he makes a save and it goes out for a corner. He does start screaming at defenders, which I think goes to his credit. But elsewise, he does some when he's tapping his head and stuff like that. And then, when he's doing, I love it at the end of games. I think we did it when we beat when was our last home victory? Sadly, who was it against? Was it Palace? Yeah. And Palace, he sort of goes up to the Gladys Street and he's proper fist in his hands and doing all that sort of thing. I just think he's such a unique character that I don't think many fans will really appreciate what he's done for us until after, you know what I mean? You like that classic saying, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. I think we'll have that feeling towards Jordan Pickford when he finally either moves on. And like you say, I mean, he's only 30. You could well see him in future years to finally take that step and go to a club that is in contention to win trophies and, succeed at that sort of level. But, like I say, last few seasons, he's kept us up. And look, his player of the season. I think the players, it's interesting as well. The little stat I had was he was player of the year only once since he joined Everton, which I think that's relatively astounding to me. I think it's that doesn't make sense to me when you consider what he's done for us, and especially when the fans player of the year, all those sort of things go in his direction. The players team player of the season. Interesting, he's only had it once.
Maybe he gets on in the gang.
He's been bailing them out.
The gang, just like Neville, like I said, he just goes home. He doesn't kind of socialise as much. I don't know. I mean, it is crazy because he has been the player of the season. At least half the season he's been with us. I
was just going to say, Rodger, that you think about as well. I think players might well feel embarrassed that they're going to give it to a goalkeeper. Yeah. You know what I mean? Think how bad are we if a goalkeeper's getting our player of the season, lads? Let's just give it to somebody else.
Yeah, there definitely could be something in there, to be
Yeah.
honest. But yeah, it is odd, isn't it? Because if you think he has bailed them out so many times. But yeah, they could be looking at it and be thinking, yeah, we can't be giving it to the goalie. As you say, Roger, he just might not be in that sort of players clique. We don't know, do we? But yeah, should we move on from the Jordan Pickford appreciation to the
Sadly,
to the grimmer news of our upcoming fixtures?
he's going to be needed in these, isn't he?
Yeah,
Oh God,
I do hope
yeah,
he's fit. Yeah.
he's gonna have to be on form for all of these. So just to run through, I'll just give a quick run through of our fixtures up until the new year. Brentford are home this coming Saturday. United away. Wolves are home. Liverpool are home. Arsenal away. Chelsea are home. City away. Forest are home. Now, on paper or before this season, there are 3 winnable games in there for me. The home games against Brentford, Wolves, and Forest. Obviously, given how this season's going, they look quite different now. As I said, I even think the Wolves game is going to be tough because they look to be sort of turning things around a little bit. Other than those 3, though, can anyone see us getting any points?
Well, I mean, I don't. I mean, I have a strange perspective on this, and I think most Blues might well be against what I say, but I can't help but feel Goodison isn't necessarily the best place that we have these games. You look at West Ham there, we could have well gone and won that. If anybody was useful up front and could have scored the winner there. Away from home, a lot of the time I feel much more comfortable because the one thing that Sean Dyche has taught this side to do is defend in a decent manner when we're away from home because you know you're going to absorb the amount of possession that the opposition are going at you. At Goodison, and this is a massive disadvantage that Sean Dyche gives you, is the fact that he's still willing to do the same as what he does away from home, which is counterproductive. When we're playing home games and possession wise, I think against Fulham, no, I think against West Ham, the first game I've seen in a long time where we had more possession than the opposition. And ironically, it was away from home. At Goodison, he seems fine for the opposition to come at us. And the thing where I think he's very short-sighted is we don't really have the players to be able to counter-attack as what he actually thinks himself. And I think that's where we've struggled at Goodison on many occasions. And, and by no means am I saying that I fancy us against Man United away than I do with Brentford, Wolves and Forest at home. But, each of these, what are we, 11 games in? It's quite frightening that these feel like 6-pointer games now. Like Brentford feels like you're in that category of must win. Certainly against Wolves, that is a genuine 6-pointer when you consider the position we're both in. And Forest, Forest are the top 4 side at the moment. You know how difficult that's going to be. I mean, a lot of people have made that level of comparison compared to like how Forest were in sort of relegation fight last season. And look how they've completely turned it around and done what they've done so far this season. Went and won at Anfield as well, no less. So that's something else that probably goes against Sean Dyche when you to compare those 2 sides. But I think by and large, those are the 3 you're hoping for. I mean, you think about the derby, it's like flipping a coin, isn't it? We don't know how that one's going to go. I mean, we give anything, wouldn't we, to do what happened back in April. But yeah, I mean, the away games, I don't fancy us getting. I mean, Chelsea are home there as well. We've done them quite a few times because they don't seem that type of side that come to Goodison and properly up for it when our crowd's up and that sort of thing. But going away to those other sides, I'd be staggered if we get a point from any of those.
I just think for me,
home,
just
3
quickly,
away, isn't it? 5 of those games are at home and 3 away, and the 3 aways are at United, City, and Arsenal. And obviously, new manager bounce for Man United. Wolves at home under the lights. It's a midweek game, so that should play to our favour. Saturday 3:00 is a shit time for us to play at home. I think, unless we go a goal up,
It's
and unless the players do something. The crowd are almost exhausted from the welcome and everything and all the passion, and the game starts and it's an anticlimax. So those 3:00 that we've got at home, Brentford is a 3:00, and I think Forest is also a 3:00 game. Forest very dangerous opponents. Yeah, we just don't have any pace. Where are we going to get the pace from? That's the problem. You talk about Forest turning things around, but they've got Hudson-Odoi, they've got Elanga, they've got Gibbs-White, they've got pace. They've got a big lump up front, but they've got pace to hit you on the counter throughout the team. Got a good quality, midfielder, a midfield that they've got there, and. Yeah, Chelsea are very different this season, Dave, to last season. They've got talent all over the pitch, and again, pace absolutely everywhere. Neto, Madueke, Brentford are dangerous. I mean, I think maybe 7 points, 2 wins and a draw. I have a funny feeling about the derby. Don't ask me why, and probably I'm best to shut up about it. But that's
a 12:30, by the way, a 12:30 on a Saturday.
Yeah.
12:30 on a Saturday. Is that a good time or a bad time? I don't know.
I think the last time we won 12:30 on a Saturday was about 4 seasons ago, something stupid like that.
I hate the time of the game personally. I can't stand the first early kickoff across a weekend. I mean, it might be something. I mean, it's the kind of thing that's on a knife edge. If you go and win that early game, your weekend's sorted then, isn't it? In terms of like,
correct,
you're happy, content, you're going out, you have a few drinks, maybe whatever. But that 12:30 start of a weekend, I mean, I dread teams that have that. Particularly, I mean, it's fine for us because it's local, but teams that go away, some of the ridiculous fixtures you see in that, where away fans are travelling thousands of miles to get there and back. I think it's quite ridiculous. But I can't stand the 12:30 because again, opposite side of it, if you lose that, it's a dreadful weekend, particularly a Merseyside derby as well. When's there been the last derby at that early kickoff? I can't remember anything like that.
We have done it before.
I remember one in what would have been 2011. Christ, 13 years ago. We lost 2-0. Suarez scored, and we had maybe Osman was sent off.
Was the Andy Johnson derby the early kickoff, or was that 3 o'clock?
That's spot on. It was, the 3-0, and that put us top of the league. Yeah, that's right. Gorgeous day as well. I remember it was blistered and hot.
Oh, it was great. Yeah. We need a repeat of that. I'm just looking at those fixtures, like you say, Rodger. Chelsea are a very, very different team this season. The manager there has done amazingly well. I know they've got all the players, but no one seems to be able to do anything with them. He's come in and he's like made them like they look like quite a fun team to watch. They all look like they're having a great time, and they're up to third. So I can honestly,
just with Maresca there, he's got a serious bottle to do what he's done, because you think of the amount of players he's got to deal with there. I mean, I like the way that he sort of changes it up for the Europa Conference. I mean, I think he's quite fortunate to have that, because you start thinking, well, basically those who I don't really consider on the fringe, they're going to get a game there. And for their fans, I don't think it's going to be the essential games. It's a bit like the League Cup equivalent for them, because Chelsea are probably embarrassed that they've not reached the Champions League or the Europa League at the very least. So I think I think it's important that he's done that, and I really like him. Actually, I think it was actually a shrewd appointment for once from Chelsea. I mean, quite obviously, he's not going to have the time that any other manager of any other club's going to be. I think he was in trouble actually the first few games, but they haven't lost since the opening day. I think I'm right in saying they've only lost one so far this season in the league, or it might be recently that they've lost.
They lost 2 in the league. 5 before, lost 2.
Yeah, so I mean, it looks like they're getting their act together, and like you mentioned there, Rodger, the players that they've got. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Cole Palmer. I think he's absolute. I love watching him. I think he's got every talent you want. It's remarkable that City let him go, even though it's for 40 million. For Manchester City, recruitment and sales, they generally don't do a thing wrong. For them to let him go. I think he's probably England's best player given form and whatnot at the moment. You've got him, and I mean Neto coming from Wolves. He got him from, didn't he?
Yep.
I don't remember him being as quick as that. He's lightning. He is absolutely lightning quick. You go either side of the pitch. I'm thinking if you got Mikolenko back in, he's going to have the day of hell there, isn't he? When you're up against him, jogging past you, I think I'll change my mind on saying I'm quite fancying Chelsea, because I've just talked myself into complete the opposite way.
Yeah, it's the Arsenal game as well. They're in a bit of a rut at the minute, and it just feels like
a terrible record there. I mean, just
the timing for Everton going there is going to be like, okay, they'll turn it around, because he's not won since Graham Stewart scored, wasn't it?
Yeah, do you remember when
Chelsea what 95?
Well, it was
Was
when
it? Oh no,
Pienaar
it was
scored that goal.
it was Thingy Ancelotti, wasn't it? Sorry, Richarlison scored where he put it through Thingy's legs. It was a howler under Ancelotti and
Okay,
COVID. We beat them then,
right.
but that's 2 wins in what nearly 40 years or some 30 years.
I
It's
just
normally the
always,
last
I
game of the
always regret
season as
the,
well.
I always regret the Pienaar one where he scores that goal when it's been snowing, and he does that
That should have been the
fantastic,
winner.
that drunken celebration. He did that, and like in your mind, it's like, oh, he scored the winner. He didn't because Diaby went down the other end and scored an
Yeah,
equaliser for him, didn't he? It was devastating.
it was a shocker of a goal as well.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
But yeah, just looking at these fixes, I think that they need to just seriously target Brentford, Wolves, and Forest. Just target those. You kind of think Forest are probably due a dip, really. I can't see that being sustainable the whole season. So hopefully we might play them at a good time where they have a bit of a wretched December and they're in a bit of a lull. But I think those 3 games are the ones to target because, I know football's not played on paper and it feels a bit defeatist to say it, but I cannot see us getting any points out the others.
well, I mean, two out the 3 with the next 3 games are both at home, winnable games. Dare to say, Brentford at home, who actually did us, didn't he? Was it last season? He did us a couple of times, haven't he? In
Yeah.
recent season, he did us in the FA Cup, did he as well, at one of the cup competitions? At Goodison, we haven't had a great record against them in recent times. Just incidentally, I think they got one of the managers that'll love it to be the next Everton manager, but I don't think you'd ever get him because I think he's due to have a massive talent going forward. Thomas Frank.
Thomas Frank, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of him. Particularly, I mean, he was on the Europa League coverage, the Euro coverage, wasn't he, on the BBC? I think he's fantastic the way he talks about the game. But anyway, 2 out the next 3 there. I think we've got to take 6 from Brentford and Wolves. Get United away, which you get anything from that with the bouncing off a new manager, then you've done really well there. And I'll probably give Sean Dyche finally some credit if we go and do that. But Brentford at home, Wolves at home, got to take 6, I think.
You see those games again when we say, they're winnable games, but Wolves and Brentford are sitting there going, we're only playing Everton. That's good.
Yeah,
they're winnable
correct.
for us.
Yeah.
That's the issue. We often see these winnable games as one-sided games because of the opposition. But Wolves, who are looking to pick up points, looking to pull away from the bottom, they'll go, well, I mean, they've got a very decent run of fixtures, haven't they, Wolves, after having started with a pretty nightmarish first 10 games. And then Forest, I mean, it's the harbinger of doom. I agree we should go after Forest, but we'll have conceivably just got battered by the Red Shite, Arsenal, Chelsea and City. So our confidence will be on the floor when the Forest come to town.
Well, it goes back to a point I've made a few times. Sorry, Les, when I've said, when clubs are sort of looking at Thomas Frank probably goes in tomorrow, whenever it is. Looking ahead to the fixtures of the weekend, they haven't really got much to do when you're thinking about what they're going to be up against with Everton because it's so predictable what they've got. So, that is why, I'm saying you need 6 from these games to actually go and get the 6 from those 2 home games. It's a different matter completely, isn't it? Really.
It is. I mean, I don't think we'll have time today to talk about it, but I wanted to talk a little bit, if we get a chance in the future, about the coaching team and the coaching setup, because we are so predictable. And they are a gang of 3, all quite similar in age, and they come as a unit. And it's all great to have collective responsibility, but nobody in Wone, Stone, and Dyche is challenging each other. Nobody's got sort of new ideas. Nobody's coming from a different era. A young attacking coach, for example, or a European defensive coach. The team are just all cut from the same cloth, and we are going to have to show greater creativity and adaptability to win these games in the Premier League, where every team's got different ways of playing apart from us.
Yeah, I agree. We'll pick that up next Monday if everyone's about. See how we fare in the Brentford game against one of those sort of youngish, up and coming-ish European managers.
When Wone and Stone just say to Sean, just sit down, will you? We'll have a go at this.
Yeah, God, right. Before we pack up for this week, what we're going to say for the points haul, Rodger, you said 7.
What, from those 10 games?
Yeah, from now until the end of December.
I think we'll win 2 of the home games and we'll get a draw in the derby. I can't see anything happening away from home, sorry.
Yeah, I agree. Dave?
I'm going for optimistic. Yeah. If we reach double figures, I'd be astounded. So I'm going to go for an optimistic 8. 2 wins, 2 draws. Maybe get a sneaky point away one of those big boys. Maybe United, I think, they're still sort of trying to grasp having a new manager and, various things they'd have to do. But yeah, by and large, I'm with Rodger there. I think, and the other side of that as well, I think that puts us in the bottom 3. I think if we're going to get 7 from those 10 games, I think that puts us in the bottom 3 when we get to New Year. Given the Ipswich look all right, we need the shite to do us a favour this weekend because they're going away to Southampton. When we're at that stage now, midway through November, we sort of rely on other teams to get us results. You know the situation you're in already, don't you? So, yeah, I mean, it's an absolute nightmare run of fixtures, isn't it? And then, and just to put a finer sort of cherry on the top of the cake, you at the start of New Year, it doesn't get much better, really, does it? When you look at, we've got Villa at home, we've Spurs, we've got to go to Brighton, 6 points against Leicester. It just the run of games just seems to continue until we get to February.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a very pessimistic 5, and we're really in the shit come New Year. I don't want it to pan out like that, but that's honestly what I see.
If we only get 5, I'd say we're in the Championship. If we only get 5, but that it's likely as anything, really.
I can honestly see it. If you watch it on YouTube,
I take my hats off to you, Les. I take my hats off to you that I wasn't the lowest points predictor. That's brilliant. Yeah. That's really cheered me up.
If you can go low, I can go lower. If you watch it on YouTube, let us know what you think in the comments. What do you think we're going to get from these next 10 games or so? And let us know what you think about Jordan Pickford. Let's have some nice messages about Jordan Pickford, because he's very much a sort of an upside in all this. Thanks to Rodger, thanks to Dave, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. We'll be back with all the usual stuff this week, leading up to the Brentford game. Have a cracking week. Up the Toffees.